And then the endpoints themselves, so the individual devices, whether that be laptops, desktops, tablets, that sort of thing.
Yep, servers too.
Servers too.
Yep. So, Curtis, did you want to do a high level on
I mean,
the endpoint?
I think most people have an understanding what their endpoint is, but there's a lot there. So I'll let you run.
Yeah, we'll dive through it real quick. So, patching obviously is important. I don't think we go a week without there being, some headline somewhere of, pick some software vendor, Microsoft, Cisco, whoever, and they probably have something in their software that is vulnerable that there's a update or patch to fix, right? So, knowing what software you have running and if there are updates available for it, knowing what version of Windows you're running and are there updates available for it, and then proactively installing those on like a weekly or bi-weekly cadence, and then it is super helpful to have somebody determine if those patches are known to have any other problems, right? So maybe you're patching something that's very, very small, and the side effect to the patch is it breaks printing. That would probably be not good for a graphic design kind of place or any place that's doing a lot of printing. So having kind of that quality assurance where it's like, look, we're going to vet these before we let them through, but we're going to let the updates deploy so that way, we don't have somebody exploit something on the endpoint, right? So
some people are really surprised when I tell them that we actually do dedicate man hours every single month just to go through the Microsoft patches that are scheduled to be released, but before we release them to our client base and
or ourselves,
or ourselves. And what you're saying there, as far as some unintended consequences, we do like to go through and double check those before releasing them out into the environment that we manage. Ad blockers. So everybody pretty much is familiar with ad blockers, I would think, just because we're all tired of seeing ads while we're on the web. But why are they important?
So a lot of malware nowadays, if it's not coming from a phishing email, right, it's going to be a malicious ad, and there isn't really much way to tell the difference between a malicious one and a legit one. So if we block all ads, then we don't have to worry about if it's malicious or legit. You just don't see the ad. Obviously, the added side effect, aside from security, it's obviously a quality of life improvement for the end user. You can go to the Weather Channel and actually see the weather instead of a bunch of mortgage ads and all that kind of stuff. But some other kind of added side effects that are useful, you get about a 15% reduction in your bandwidth that you use, because you're not going and grabbing those images for the ads from the internet or the video or whatever. And then you also get a lot less alerting as far as the antivirus is concerned, because the antivirus will know, hey, this is a malicious ad, I'm going to block this. But if you're just blocking all ads, then now you're not even getting the alert for, from the antivirus, right? So that becomes very handy. As far as ransomware canary, obviously we covered that, and that's just basically you have files on every endpoint that is, managed, that if they're changed or modified, that some sort of alert goes out, and then maybe some sort of automated isolation to prevent the machine from infecting others. EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. I did a /antivirus there because they're kind of becoming the same thing. It used to be kind of a separate product stack, but it's basically watching everything that's happening on the computer and then just evaluating it using AI, machine learning, math, and just good old-fashioned fingerprinting, and determining if it's malicious or not. And if it could be, then alerting the administrator or IT company that that's going on.
So is that I was just going to ask, is that the biggest difference between some of your more business class solutions and the McAfee or Norton that you might buy off the shelf at through any retail type environment? Yeah.
So one of the big differences, I would say, is the quality of the product and the quality of the threats that they detect. So McAfee and Norton, the business flavors versus the kind of more residential home user flavors. The home user flavors are probably just looking at the file, looking in a database of known malicious files and seeing if it's in that. It's not necessarily going and drilling down deep into the system level to see kind of what stuff is happening behind the scenes, and what commands are being run if somebody's typing in into a command prompt. Your average home user antivirus isn't paying attention to any of that. And that's where a lot of the more kind of sophisticated attacks happen that we see nowadays is kind of at that level. So having something that's a little bit more robust in what it can monitor and what it can defend against is kind of the line between the business antivirus or the enterprise antivirus and the home use.
Yeah. Then log monitoring and SIEM.
Yep. So SIEM is security, instrumentation, and endpoint management, I believe. Is that, did I get the acronym right?
Depends on who you ask.
There's a lot of acronyms out there. It's hard to keep track of them.
Security, incident, and event monitoring.
There you go.
That's the one
So basically, your SIEM or log monitoring is you are watching the log files for the computers. You're watching the log files for the routers, servers, laptops. You're basically watching those logs for behavior that could be malicious, right? And basically, if you don't know that it is, you need to treat it as if it is and kind of do research on it. This command is doing something that appears to be reaching out to like a server in Europe or something like that. So now we need to investigate, do they actually do business in Europe? Is this a IP that other endpoints have connected to, that sort of thing? And then we can, do some research and kind of make a judgment call. And the other thing that allows us to do is basically kind of do what's called threat hunting. So it's using the logging to inform what you do with the EDR and AV, right? So if you get something that is kind of 50-50 if it's malicious or not, well, let's go ahead and do a full EDR scan on it and have this, have the EDR look through everything that is, running on the computer or everything that's just sitting on the computer and do like a really kind of fine review of what's going on. And, then we can know, okay, it's safe, it's not safe, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, it's the line between EDR, AV, log monitoring, and SIEM, and even SOC and threat hunting's all starting to blur.
Yeah.
You're starting to see them feed each other. The R in EDR is response. So you're starting to have automated scripts trigger and, systems be able to heal themselves and take actions, so that whole section there is one of the, one of the most changing in my opinion.
Yeah. They blur all those together, and that's, we often refer to that as XDR, but that's not an officially industry, that's not an official industry term yet. It's just one that's being used a lot, and there's not really you can say there's XDR, but what are you covering with that? So it's
right.
It's a buzzword, but it's also helpful.
I know there seems to be some hesitancy on adopting a true SIEM platform, usually due to cost. There's definitely a step up in cost when kind of crossing that threshold, but. Curtis, is there a particular group of industries or certain folks out there that, yeah. So if you're not all cases, so everything I'm going to say has a little bit of a caveat, because if you just say CMMC, well, now there's layers. If you just say HIPAA, well, you probably don't need SIEM, but maybe you do. So it really depends, especially if you get into PCI, DSS, and all the layers in there, and how you're, what SAQ you're designated as. But I do expect SIEM on the whole to get a little cheaper, and I expect it to get more adopted, because a lot of times now, if you've ever been involved in a breach, being able to look at log files, and this is something we didn't actually touch on, but in a true SIEM system, the log files are stored away from the problem, meaning they're archived, so even if ransomware got in and tore everything up and we didn't know about it, or you didn't know about it for a week, we still have the log files protected in its own place, which is a pretty big piece of SIEM. I do think you'll see it. We can go back and looking back into history, basically.
Correct, right, and see what happened. They also get everything. A good SIEM system can get, all the emails sent back and forth from in your Office 365 tenancy. That's not even on your computer, right? And then it's going to get all the info from your Azure servers or your VMware machine hypervisor. It can aggregate and start time stamping. So if you're working forensics or, post breach investigations, incidents reports, you can go back and see, okay, I see the email come at this time, and I can see gives you one place. So I got on a tangent there, but right now we mostly see it in compliance, depending on what you're trying to achieve, what framework you're working towards. There's SIEMs that, in my opinion, are 100% required. And the reason I say SIEMs, because there's some that are called SIEMs that aren't real SIEMs, but they're still really good. So, it's a very big variety there.
And then BitLocker is something a lot of people might be familiar with, but just in case, if you want to.
Yeah, so BitLocker, and it's more of a physical security control than anything else. But obviously, with everybody, a lot of people working from home, people have laptops, people work from different places, go to Airbnbs, what have you. BitLocker Drive encryption makes it so if the computer is off, the data on it is encrypted with strong cryptography that makes it so if you take the hard drive out and try to put it in another computer, that data is locked, and unless you have a recovery key or a powerful supercomputer that doesn't yet exist, you're not going to get access to that information. And then if you try to do some sort of physical exploitation against the actual computer without taking the hard drive out, it's going to change something enough to where BitLocker is going to go, hey, this doesn't seem right, and it's going to lock the drive and ask for a recovery.
So definitely,
so that's
reduces...
very handy. Yeah, if you have a laptop and sitting in your car and somebody takes it, it's
Right.
nice to know that they effectively have a brick that they can't use to go through business data stored on the machine.
It's a
Okay,
no-brainer,
so-
no cost.
You're right.